Hello. Hi, Ted. This is Ted Mavrakis, and he will be describing to us tonight for the real estate strategy session. Our Wednesday, every Wednesday we have this because Ted sees how profitable, how much real estate could help people, and Ted is a very good person. He loves helping people to help themselves and make some in, wiser investment decisions. And today, he will be describing a real estate deal from start to hopefully we have enough time to finish. Like, do you have welcome, Ted? And do you have a real estate deal in mind that you once did that you want to focus on for today?
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so about what year was it? So we have a frame of reference.
Sure. It was 2015.
Okay.
And of course, this deal is a commercial deal. Okay. But what is important is to depict the strategy of this deal because it can be applied to any other type of deal. Okay. So I was looking for a property to lease in downtown Chicago.
Why did you want to? Well, it is kind of expensive. Is that why you wanted to lease instead of to buy?
Well, at that time, I was involved with a bar business in Evanston, and we were looking to expand. And we're looking to expand in downtown Chicago. So we hired a broker who called us one day and says, I think I've got a place. You better come and see it. So we went downtown. It was on Wabash, if I'm right, 19 South Wabash, 17 South Wabash. And she showed us the space. It was 7,000 square foot space, ground floor, with the intention to rent it. Okay, because the building wasn't for sale. Okay, and so we went downtown. We met with the broker. He showed us the space, and then he arranged. We met with the owner of the building. So while we met with the owner of the building, and we're talking about the negotiation about leasing the space for a prospective bar, I asked simply the owner, how long do you own the property? And the owner said, oh, this is in our family for 3 generations. Okay. So I felt that this is perfect. Okay. Because I always, it's important for me when I buy property, which I can explain in another video, the reason. But for now, the strategy is how I bought the property without money. Okay, without any down payment, without any of my own money, I bought this property. So I asked the owner, would you consider selling the property? And just if the price is right, and I said, okay, then can you tell me what's the price you have in mind? And well, he held it a little bit, and then he says, well, I'll sell it for $3 million. It was a 5-story building downtown on Wabash. You can go and verify that. So with the ground floor as a retail space, that there was 1 or 2 small restaurants, and that we were looking for that space to occupy for the bar, the intention. And then he was a tenant on the 2nd floor, he himself, which I believe he's still there because he's selling cigars. Okay. And then there was a printing store on the 3rd floor. And then 4th and 5th floor, they were empty. Okay. So once he tells me that he's asking for $3 million, I just turned to the broker and I said, okay, prepare an offer for $3 million. And so we made an offer for $3 million to buy the property.
So you didn't do any operational analysis or, and also was it 7,000 square feet for each floor?
Correct. Actually, it was 10,000 per floor. But the ground floor, because partially was taken by a jewelry store, the net it was 7. Okay, so there was another 3,000 for the jewelry store that he would stay there. Okay, so now basically we have like 50,000 square feet building downtown Chicago on Wabash. So then I figured out, okay, as I said previously, the bank gives about 75% loan to value. So if I buy this property for $3 million, okay, I know that I can get financing from the bank 75%, which for $3 million, that would be 2.5. Okay, so then I had to worry about the 500 equity that I have to come up with. So while we were negotiating, we signed a contract, okay, and of course the contract has due diligence, which means unless certain things are there, okay, you have a certain days that you can pull out. So that's the misconception is, oh, once I get into a contract, then what happened? I'm going to lose my deposit. No, you don't lose your deposit. You don't lose anything. You have enough time to check about the building, the structural, the roof, the mechanics, everything. And usually with the offer, you just give like 30 days, 60 days, due diligence.
So how many days did you get for this building?
60 days, okay? And so while you have 60 days, okay, you're not at risk. Once the 60 days pass, then you have to understand either you have to move forward or you have to, withdraw your offer, okay? So during that period of the due diligence, I met with him a few times, with the owner, just to check about, the building. So I asked questions about, there was an elevator and the empty floors and all kind of things that, because you're preparing to buy the building.
So what kind of things? Because our audience would like to know what goes into due diligence.
Okay, due diligence includes the structural condition of the property. Okay, so I went up on the roof, I look at the roof, I ask when did they fix the roof, okay, if there was any problem with the roof. Then,
by the way, how did the roof look to you?
The roof looked good to me. As a matter of fact, he just replaced it 2 years ago, and he had a contract guarantee by the people who fix it for the next 15 years, which was perfect. And then you look at the boiling, heating, and air conditioning. How is the building is cooled and heated? And you look at the mechanics. Okay.
What about the ductwork? Is there any way to check that the duct is all clean? Because I know that sometimes it could get really, really dirty. The ductwork for that brings the air conditioning and the heat to the units.
Well, if you want to be thorough with your investigation, sure, you can hire someone. There are professional people that for a minimum, like for $1,000, $1,200, they can go and do that and give you a report. In my case, I have that confidence. I have the experience. I didn't think it was necessary. Okay. So I just, again, I look at the roof, look at the mechanics, look at the utilities, okay, the bills and the expenses. Okay.
Like what kind of expenses in addition to the utilities? Are you talking about the taxes and the insurance as well?
Correct. I look at the property taxes, okay, if he appealed, if they are protested, what they are, okay, and so more or less that's what it is. Okay.
So if they protested, how does that affect your decision? If
well, if they're protested, that means whatever they are, you've got nothing more you can do yourself. If they're not protested, then you hope that, oh, once I get the building, I will protest them and I will get a discount. So if the property taxes are 100,000 and are not protested, it's a good in a way because you will do it. But if they have protested, don't expect the property taxes to be less.
How many levels do you protest? You first protest at the assessor's level, and then the board of review,
Correct.
and then maybe even to the courts?
Correct. Yes, there are different. Excuse me. There are different levels. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, there are different levels that you protest the property taxes. Usually, I have an attorney who is doing that for me because I have a lot of properties. I can afford that, and so he's doing that for me. Okay.
Could they kind of tell at what level it is so that there's no point in going any further?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the professional attorney who does property taxes, he can advise you even at the price that you're going to pay to buy the property, how much it will change your taxes. Okay, so it's very, very important. Okay, and they give that service for free. I mean, it doesn't cost. You find anyone, any attorney who protests taxes, you call them before you buy the property, you describe the property, you give them the PIN number, and you ask them, if I pay that much money to buy the property, what will be the impact of the property taxes? And they will tell you. Okay, so sometimes it's not important what the property taxes are. What is important is with the price that you pay, how they will change. Because in Illinois, there is this rule that the assessor picks up the price, the purchase price. And based on that, they reassess the property taxes. There are some other states that they don't have that rule. They, usually they do it every 5 years. But the state of Illinois, the minute that you buy property, they pick up that price, and they make the next year they make an adjustment.
So they let's say your building is you're paying $3 million. Then what was the assessor's basis for the building? Was it just based on what they assessed it, or was it even like before what maybe they had some other exemptions? Or
it was much less since they owned the property for a long time. The assessment, it was much less. I knew that the minute I pay the $3 million, that will change. How much I didn't know, but still it was a good purchase. So during the due diligence period, I asked the seller that if he had any mortgage on the property, and he says no, we have paid it off. It's been in the family for a long time. And I said, okay. So I asked very simply, the money that you're going to get from the sale, what are you going to do? And he says, well, I'll put them in the bank. Okay. And once you put the money in the bank, they give you 1%, right? I asked him, would you consider getting a second mortgage with 5% interest for 3 years? He says, I don't know much about it. I'll ask for advice from my attorney. And if he says, okay, why not? So a few days later, he called and he says, yeah, we will accept that. So basically at that point, I had established all the money to do the deal. Okay. So here we go to the closing.
But there's still the cap. Could you explain to the audience about the cap, and then how the cap figured into the operational analysis and the $3 million offer?
Correct. So what is important at this point, I was buying this property with in mind that the first floor, the ground floor, I would be using it for the bar. Okay, so I had the tenant there, and I projected, because originally I approached this building as a tenant, and I was willing to pay like at least $25, $30 a square foot.
And that would approximately come out to how much per month?
That will come about $210,000 a year.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Because I was both, now would be a landlord and a tenant. Think about that. My tenant, the bar, would occupy the ground floor. And was willing to pay 210,000 rent a year.
Mhm.
Then there was the jewelry store that was paying another 10,000.
Mhm.
Okay, that's another 110.
Mhm.
Then he wanted to stay as a tenant on the second floor,
Mhm.
and we agree that his rent would be another 10,000.
Mhm.
Okay, and then there was another tenant on the third floor, a printing shop, that they were paying about 7,000.
Oh, one thing though, he had a cigar shop on the second floor, and it was a big cigar shop with 10,000 square feet.
Yes,
Oh.
the whole floor. Yes, because he had a lounge
Mhm.
where you
Oh.
would go and buy cigars,
Mhm.
and then you would go to the lounge and sit and
Okay.
smoke a cigar
And socialize.
and socialize. And
Ah.
basically, all the judges and all the
Mhm.
big shots downtown there, they were going there for lunch
Mhm.
and have a drink and smoke a cigar. So
Mhm.
that's why it was 10,000 square feet.
I see.
But again,
Thank you.
based on the numbers that the property would produce, it would give me at least 10 cap,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
which is important.
Mhm.
So I had the cash flow to justify. Actually, it was more than what it was necessary.
When you went to meet the owner about the lease, did you already investigate the entire property and know who was on the second floor, who was on the third floor, and that the fourth and fifth floor were vacant? Did
Correct.
you already knew?
Basically, there was, going into the deal, I would have a tenant at the bar, which was me,
Mhm.
okay, but through a company, right?
Mhm.
Then I had the jewelry store.
Mhm.
Then we agree with him that he would be the second floor
Mhm.
person,
Mhm.
okay, tenant. Then there was an existing printing shop, which I went and I met with the owner, and they agreed to stay. They wanted to stay.
Mhm.
And then I had 2 floors empty, which I had to do a little renovation
Mhm.
to make it rentable.
Mhm.
So I figured out
Mhm.
just even without those 2 floors, still the income of the property would be sufficient to carry and pay the mortgage
Mhm.
and pay, and money left for me.
So when you went in to negotiate the lease in the beginning, did you already investigate? Maybe did you already have some idea that this building might have been in the family for a while? And did you know that who the tenants were on the second and third floor? Did you know that going in when you wanted to lease the bottom floor for the bar?
No. It just, that's why part of the real estate, the beauty
Mhm.
is be involved,
Mhm.
start talking,
Mhm.
and in that process, you will find the gold.
Mhm.
Okay, the gold is, you cannot see it or smell it before.
Mhm.
Okay, I highly encourage people that they want to be in the real estate business, be involved. Okay, it's almost like pretend you want to buy it, and then you will find the real whatever it is that you're buying.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
most of the people are scared even to start. Okay, the process. You've got nothing to lose. Okay, I mean, it's amazing that while I start the process, okay, is just then I find out the opportunities there.
Mhm. Mhm. So there's a lot of opportunities that came up to you that you just talked
Not
to
aware.
people. Yes. Mhm.
Correct.
Mhm.
I was just simply, I went there with the intention to rent
Mhm.
the ground floor
Mhm.
for the bar,
Mhm.
and just by my desire to buy the property, I discovered the gem of the property,
Mhm.
where I said, wow, I mean, this property worth much more than what he's asking.
Mhm.
Okay, and I saw the opportunity there.
Mhm.
But if I didn't express the interest to buy it, I would never find out
Mhm.
about it. And so that's what it's all about. I mean, just for people that they want to be in real estate, please get engaged.
Mhm.
Okay, talk to a prospective seller, and you've got nothing to lose other than to discover that whatever you're talking about is a better and better deal than what you even thought before.
So after you did your due diligence, could you walk us through the next steps of everything that happened to finalize and all the way to the closing. Just so the people who aren't familiar with real estate, they know what needs to be done.
Correct. Again, it just the circumstances that they brought me to this property are whatever they are, right?
Mhm.
In my case, it was the desire to find a place and expand a bar business.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what it brought me. Once I came upon this property,
Mhm.
right? Then I have the conversation with the seller and I'm asking him, would you consider selling it?
Mhm.
Okay, the building wasn't for sale.
Mhm.
Okay, I just initiated that. I said, would you consider selling it?
Mhm.
And what his response is, if the price is right,
Mhm.
okay, so what is your price? He could say 10 million. And I say, oh, I better off renting it, and that's it, okay?
Mhm.
And that's why, I mean, don't be, again, one of the, another thing I also want to say is when you ask a question, don't answer that yourself, let the other person answer it.
Mhm.
Because some of the people have the tendency, like, for instance, how much are you selling it? I bet you asked 10 million.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Mhm.
It's where you ask the question and you answer the question.
Mhm.
No, just say, how much would you sell it for?
Mhm.
And let the person answer you. You will be surprised.
Mhm.
You will be surprised sometimes that you should say 10 million or 2 million. Okay. In this case, I initiated that and he says 3 million.
Mhm.
All right. Once he said 3 million, and then I can visualize, I can put things together. Okay. The ground floor where I was intended to be there, that's a $200,000 income a year, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And then, of course, I ask, are there other tenants? Yes, there is a jewelry store. Fine. What else? Well, there is a printing store. And what else? Well, it was him on the second floor,
Mhm.
which was not rent established yet. So we negotiated, and I said, okay, how much would you be considering paying rent, for you to stay? And he said, well, about 10,000. So okay. So now with all that information, I figure out that's a beautiful deal.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's how you find through engagement, okay, through questioning in a positive way.
Mhm.
Okay. So then once I established that the price justified, okay, the income,
Mhm.
although there were not all of them there, but I can see the income, what it can produce, then I make the move. Okay. So I make an offer. Okay. And the offer usually requires to put a down payment. Okay. And for
How much down payment?
in this case, usually like you pay 10%.
Mhm.
Okay. But it doesn't matter. I put 50,000.
Mhm.
Okay. 50,000 for a $3 million. It's not a big
Mhm.
a big amount, right?
Right.
So, but that 50,000 wasn't at risk the minute that I put it.
Mhm.
It would be at risk after my due diligence, which was 60 days.
Mhm.
Okay, so we presented the offer with a check for 50,000. The broker, of course, holds the check. He puts it into an account.
Escrow account?
Escrow account.
Mhm.
Okay, it doesn't go to the seller. And then for 60 days, I went and I look at the roof, I look at the mechanics, as I said, all the possible scenarios about the building, the story, whatever I could collect about the building, right?
Mhm.
And so once I became aware and I came comfortable, because during that time, let's say something pops up and you don't like it, you just call up and say, you know what? I'm done. I'm not interested for the building.
Mhm.
You ask the broker, please give me back my 50,000.
Mhm.
If he gives you back the 50, no harm,
Mhm.
nothing, right?
Mhm.
So once I finished that and I decided to go forward, of course, during that time, I was working the money because I knew, okay, that the bank is going to give me 2.5.
Mhm.
I was looking for the other 5. And since I secured that through him, then the deal was beautiful. Then, I bought this building in 2015.
Do you know, do you
No
still,
money down, nothing.
right?
Yeah.
Do you still remember at that time, downtown, what the business vacancy rate was?
It was big. It wasn't very, very secure. But to me, again, it's like the Dow Industrial, they say today, okay, it was down. But if the stock that you bought today, it went up, it doesn't affect you. You understand that? The Dow Industrial
Yes.
represents a group of stocks.
Yes.
Okay. Real estate is the same thing.
Mhm.
The real estate, it's all of the real estate, let's say in Chicago, right?
Yes.
But, and let's say the economy and everything is going down, but the building that you buy, if it itself is a good deal,
Mhm.
I mean, overall, it's not that bad.
Mhm.
Okay. So you could have, vacancy
Mhm.
all over there. But as far as I was concerned, okay, with me on the ground floor, with the jewelry, with him on the second, and the printing store on the third,
Mhm.
that was enough to carry me on.
What was the cap with those 3 floors occupied then?
It was 10 cap,
Mhm.
okay, which was, fine. Anything that I would rent the fourth and the fifth floor, that would be extra.
Mhm.
So that made me very, very comfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, so even if the 4th and 5th floors were not rented out, you'll still be at 10 cap. But if you were to rent it out, it would be even better.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct.
And,
So I only get the upside
Mhm.
of the deal.
And then there was some renovation necessary for the 4th and 5th floor,
Yes,
but
yes,
was,
because since they were not rented for a long time, I needed to do some work with the windows, with the floors.
Mhm.
But again, the money that they would bring, it would justify the renovation.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. So even with the renovation, that 10 cap was still intact. Even if it went down to 9 or 8 cap because of the renovation, you were still ahead.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Again, when you look at a deal like this, you make sure that the money, the income, the cash flow is there to serve the debt.
Mhm.
In this case, I had like $3 million, right?
Mhm.
And I believe I got it with 5%. 5% with the bank, 5% for the seller that I gave the 500
Mhm.
note, right?
Mhm.
So overall, it was 5%.
Mhm.
That means I needed $150,000
Mhm.
just interest. Okay.
Mhm.
And then let's say another, back then there were the property tax, another 100,000. So you needed like 250.
Mhm.
Okay. So just the, what's the name? The ground floor, the bar
Mhm.
with the jewelry store had enough to cover that.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's how you become wealthy in real estate.
Mhm.
Okay. Because there is a cash flow.
Mhm.
And if you manage to buy properly, okay, that's how you become wealthy.
Mhm.
Okay. It's not to consider the appreciation and the tax benefits that you get from the property, just the cash flow itself.
Mhm.
Okay. It's the exciting part.
So what you're saying is first concentrate on the cash flow. Make sure that the cash flow is sufficient and is good, and then everything else is secondary.
Absolutely, absolutely. The cash flow is important because you don't want to buy a property that you cannot serve the debt, and so you have to pay attention to the cash flow.
Mhm.
That's why it's difficult to buy a property which is empty. Okay, when the property is totally empty. Okay, although you may have a plan, you have to plan accordingly, but at least for the next 6 months or a year,
Mhm.
since you're not going to be receiving income, how you're going to serve.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you just the whole thing, it's based on a plan. What is your plan? What do you plan to do with the property?
So have you ever bought any building that did not have any tenants?
No, no,
Mhm.
no. Usually,
Yes.
I'm not that developer or speculator who is going to buy it. Usually, I depend on the tenants,
Mhm,
okay, when I buy a property.
mhm, yes.
And I depend on the cash flow.
Mhm,
So it's important.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that talk some more, but
So, Trudy, what is important here,
mhm,
this particular deal
mhm,
basically is the strategy
mhm,
that you can buy a property without money.
mhm,
That's what it is.
mhm,
Okay. I mean, it was a little bit bigger for the average beginner.
mhm,
Okay. But again, this is a real story. It
mhm,
just happened 2015. Okay. And so I went to the closing, I bought this property, and so I had to come up with 3 million, right?
mhm,
2.5 the bank came,
mhm.
and 500 the seller.
And when you I came up with the 5% interest rate, did you base that on what you would be paying the bank for the 2.5?
Correct. Since I was paying the bank 5%, I felt to give him also 5%.
Mhm.
Usually the owners, they get the second, they ask a little bit more than the bank.
Mm.
Okay, but it's okay. It's a smaller amount. The big amount of the loan is 2.5.
Mhm.
Okay, the second, it's a smaller one. Even if you pay a few points more, it's okay. But it's important that I went to the closing, okay, and
And how much would the closing be at with this type of a deal? How much would it
I mean,
cost?
there are expenses.
Mhm.
There is an expense for a lawyer. There are expenses for surveys and title and all the things, which is typical and normal, right? It can be like 20, 30,000 expenses for a deal like this.
Mhm.
But also there are prorations, like the property taxes. Since in Illinois, we pay behind. So what happens is the seller gives you that money to you since you're gonna pay it for next year.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Yes.
these are called the prorations, right?
Mhm.
And in case that if the property taxes were 100,000, and here you at any time that money they give it to you. So
And
that's
in
why.
other words, if he had lived there for 6 months out of that tax bill that he paid, then he would give you the 6 months that he no longer owns the building. He would give that 6 months to you.
Correct, correct. And so that's why at the closing, I left with 70,000 check.
Mhm.
So here I bought a $3 million property without any money. And then at the closing, I got $70,000 check in my pocket.
But did you also pay closing as well?
Yes,
And then you still had 70,000.
70,000, correct. And so, of course, it's not my money. It's in 6 months when the property taxes come, then I have to pay that.
Right.
Basically, that's what it is. But
Mhm.
just for the closing,
Mhm.
I walk out the check.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, it's the typical strategy,
Mhm.
right? Where you don't have money and you structure it where the seller helps you.
Mhm.
It works usually with the seller who owns the property for a long time, so that he has paid off, or any seller who has no mortgage,
Mhm.
or the mortgage is too little.
Mhm.
Okay, because if the property has a mortgage equal to what you are paying him, there is no room for him to give you that. He's not going to bring you money from home just to give it to you.
Mhm.
But if the deal itself has money, he wouldn't mind to lend you the money,
Mhm.
because again, you're going to be paying him interest on that money.
Right.
And it has like for 3 years.
Mhm.
So 3 years later, you pay. Of course, in my case, this property, a year later, 8 months later, I sold it.
Mhm.
I found a buyer. I bought it for 3. I sold it for $4.5 million.
Mhm.
Okay.
Why did you sell the? Did you think that maybe it would go up later, and wouldn't it be an investment? And plus, did you still have the buyer there?
Someone else reached out to me and he says, I just find out that you bought this building. I was interested buying it,
Mhm.
but somehow I miss it. And now I just find out that you bought it. I said, yes. And he asked me, a young guy, and he says, would you consider selling it? I said, sure. And how much? And I said, 5 million. Okay. And says, would you sell it for 4.5? I said, sure. And so we had a deal and I sold it for 4.5. So I just made $1.5 million in 8 months. Okay.
Yeah, congratulations. That's good.
Thank you. And so again, to all those people that they say, I don't have money, therefore I'm not going to bother looking for real estate, I would say it's wrong. It's a myth. Okay. Simply start looking, okay, and get engaged, find the seller, okay, and through that process, you will be surprised what you will find, what you will discover. You will find the seller who doesn't want to deal with the property anymore. You will find the seller who inherited from his parents, and again, he doesn't want to deal with the property, and they were willing to do anything just to get rid of the property.
Would you say that it's better for to go in with the broker and yourself to talk with the owner, or is it okay for the broker to go in to talk with the owner?
Either way it works. Simply, you need to find the broker who understands this kind of transaction. There are some brokers that, you know, they don't understand that. Okay, but a good broker who understands this notion, he can help you. Actually, he can be, you know, really, really good for you, where once you move in the process, then you have him as your proxy to do the work for you.
So how do we find a broker like that? What questions should we ask the broker to see if the broker understands what we want to do?
Well, just, you know, explain from the beginning that I have no money, or I don't like to put a lot of money down. So more or less gonna be like, you know, 100% financing. And there will be brokers that are gonna dismiss you. They're gonna say, oh, you don't have money, forget it. Well, then don't worry about it. But find someone who's gonna say, oh, sure.
Because those that say sure, they understand what you're doing, and they see that it's still good for them, good for everybody.
Correct. And again, it just it's not necessary to say I don't have any money. Okay, I have plenty of money, but they're invested in real estate or in other, you know, whatever you can say, right? I don't want to liquidate my money in order to buy this property. I have money, but my intention is to buy this property, okay, without money, okay? Because you cannot go there and say, I'm broke, I have no money. I mean, again, how much money you have, it's not written up here, right? Nobody knows how much money you got. It's how you display, how you present yourself. So that's why it gets a little bit more psychology. When you go to these meetings to meet the seller or the broker, dressed up nicely. If you have a car, if you have two cars and one is more expensive than the other, use the expensive car, okay? And if you only have one car, make sure you clean it and shine it so it looks like presentable. Again, there will be times that you wanna, you need to display that I'm doing okay, okay? Put your best dress, okay? Don't go with something that looks like you just finished, you know, the janitor's work, even if you are a janitor. Just go home, change, put your suit, you know, get to your car, and when you go there, have that confidence where you say, yeah, I want to buy this property.
What about the bank? Do they check people's background before lending? How much do they check? How much does that affect how much they lend?
This is America. There's nothing better than America, okay? It's where the dreams happen faster and easier and better, okay? So again, the whole thing is a game. And for every game, we have to know the rules. The rules are very, very important. The same thing with the bank, okay? There is something that is called credit. The bank is selling money. It's not selling pizzas. Like I used to have a restaurant that I was selling pizza. I was selling pizzas to make money. The bank sells one thing, money. Okay? And of course, they don't give it anywhere to everyone. Hey, come on, give you money. So they're looking for a credit-worthy people. And so either you believe it in the system or you don't believe, it's irrelevant. But you start with the credit, okay? I would highly recommend check your credit and see what number is it, okay? because don't go to the bank before you check your credit.
Mhm.
And then the bank finds out, oh, your credit is 600. And
So
you-
what should the number be before we go to the bank to do this kind of a deal?
okay, the bank usually, they have certain rules, but one of them is they don't lend money unless you have more than 625 credit score.
Mm.
Okay, I remember when I was dealing with Wells Fargo at one point, it says your score cannot be less than 620
Mhm.
because otherwise don't lend money.
Mm.
So for an average guy who pays the bills and pays attention, okay, your credit score can be like 7, 8. At this point, do you know how much is your credit score?
It's 719 and 729 now, I think.
Correct.
Mhm.
I would say there are sites that you can see your score and you can see why it is that number, because there may be some kind of discrepancy, maybe there is some request. Clear that
Mhm.
or settle that.
Mhm.
Okay, so at least before you go to the bank for the loan, you have to understand they will check.
Mhm.
Okay, it's to me like someone is coming to rent a place, like because I'm a real estate investor. I have commercial spaces
Mhm.
and people coming to rent. I'm looking for someone again who has the credibility there, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things is I'm asking them, have you filed for a bankruptcy? Is your credit good? Okay. And I kind of force them to tell me if there is something, let me know. Because if I find out, then what's the point?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So that's why I said before you go to a bank, you need to know your score.
Mhm.
Okay. And the higher the score, the better it is. Because they will, I mean, it's not going to be the only thing they're going to see. But one of the things that we'll see will be your credit score.
Yes. Yeah, what happened with my credit score is that I was in a dispute with a payment, so I got that settled, but the but the balance was still there. It did come back to me, but that the disputed payment was on the balance, so that pulled me down a bit.
Correct, correct. And there are all kind of disputes there, okay? And there, you can write a letter and try to clear this. And if you feel like you're not the expert to do this, then there are some guys relatively cheap that you can pay 500, or I would say even 1,000, right? And you worry because you say, oh, I'm going to pay 1,000. Well, you pay 1,000 to save thousands.
Right.
See, sometimes we look at the penny and we don't look at the bigger picture, right?
Mhm.
So there are all kind of companies and individuals that they can help you. That dispute, resolve there,
Mhm.
and your score can become 800.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just be aware, a bigger score helps you to get a better rate when you go to lease a car,
Mhm. Mhm.
okay? Buy a house, mortgages, everything.
Mhm.
So it is important. Don't dismiss that.
Mhm.
And it is something that you need to do in advance, okay? Whatever it is. So become aware of your score, become aware of the disputes, see if you can improve it, okay? And at least, know where you are as far as that issue is.
Mhm. So besides establishing good credit, what else should a real estate investor make sure that is in place before embarking on real estate investment?
Okay, that's the numbers, they have to work. Whatever you buy, okay, the numbers have to work. So if you try to buy a house, okay, the house is going to have a cost, right? And how you're going to serve that cost based on your salary. Is your salary big enough to support that? In our situation, we buy investment properties that they have a cash flow.
Mhm.
Is that cash flow enough to serve the debt? Because the bank also is going to look for that.
Mhm.
Okay, the bank actually is going to look at how much is the cash flow, okay, to serve the debt, and also they will put aside also some reserve in case that the building needs, maintenance and unexpected expenses.
Does the bank do the same kind of due diligence as the buyer does?
More or less, it's a filter, okay, in a stricter way, because usually the investor, it's a more optimistic and he may dismisses certain things. The bank is doing it in a more diligent and in a more stricter way, okay? And sometimes it just, because they have an interest, they're gonna lend you money. And the bank wants two things, the security, okay? And the time, like any other lender. The lender wants two things, the security, like whatever I give you money, it's secured. And then how soon you're gonna get my money back. Those things, they have to be, satisfied for them.
So that's the security would be the building, the as collateral, and then the cash flow, and then
The timing. Yeah.
Is if the bank's due diligence is a little bit more than your due diligence, what kind of due diligence do they do, and how does that help us at all about what the bank is doing as due diligence, if we know?
The bank, again, is doing the same thing that you're doing in a stricter way, as far as they're gonna, if it's an apartment building, let's say it's 100% occupied. In their due diligence, they're gonna put 5% vacancy. Even if you don't have the vacancy, they will consider a vacancy, right? And then let's say you have like $5,000 for maintenance. They may say, well, that's too low. We're gonna put 10% for maintenance. They're gonna increase the numbers just to be a little bit more comfortable, okay? Which means if the bank approves it, that means good, because your numbers are, it's something like you project, okay, I have a company and next year I project it's gonna make like 1 million. And the bank says, no, we did the same due diligence and we project you're gonna be making 1.5 instead of 1. This is positive, okay? Because another one, someone else looked at that and finds it based on the facts that you're gonna make more. The same, this is the opposite. Here the bank looks and it says, well, you've got maintenance allocated 5,000. We think it's too small. We're going to allocate 10,000. Okay, and also the property taxes, they increase every year. You may consider 5%. They will consider 10%, just to be safe. Which means when they allocate too much, then your cash flow shrinks, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it may not be enough, and that's why the bank says, hey, your cash flow is not good. Do you understand that?
Yes.
So that's very,
Okay, so does that affect how the interest rate that the bank charges you, if they do the due diligence that way? If do they charge more interest if it seems that you need to set more aside?
No, not necessarily. No, the interest rate, each bank, they have already set aside the interest rate for that type of property. But still, you can negotiate that. All depends if you've been dealing with the bank for a long time, okay? You can go there and usually they say, okay, 5%. What can you do better? Okay, and be surprised and say, okay, we'll do for you 4.25, 4.75. Okay, you negotiate that. Also, there are banks that are going to say, okay, we're going to give you 8%. No, thank you. I don't want it. I mean, just recently, someone sent me a proposal from Florida about financing, right? And they were asking like 9% interest and some points up front. And I said, you know what? I don't need this finance. It's too expensive. Okay. So, but again, you negotiate like anything else with the bank.
And the bank, if they know that you're a good customer, they do want to keep you, and then they're more likely to negotiate better with you if you're a regular customer.
Absolutely, absolutely. The bank wants to have a relationship with you, and also the bank wants you to bring another deal and another deal, because one is not enough. Okay, and for that reason, you have that kind of leverage with the bank.
So how many relationships do you have? How many bank relationships do you have?
Right now, I'm dealing with about 6, 7 banks that they have mortgages,
Mhm,
and I have a lot of loans.
mhm,
And I have one bank I have 6 million, another one I have 9 million, another one I have 10 million. So each yeah, I have quite a few banks,
mhm.
and I just I check with them when I have a new deal. I reach out to them and I say, well, I have a deal such and such where you are, because some of the banks, they don't even want to make certain type of deals.
Why?
Okay.
What kind of deals would they try to
Let's
avoid?
say you want to buy a restaurant building, okay? And the bank says, no, no, no. Anything that with a restaurant, we feel it too risky. We don't want to touch it, okay? And then you say, how about apartments? No, no, we don't want apartments because we only want commercial or industrial. So they have their own, package of what they're doing.
Why is it that they would separate their business that way? Is it if it's profitable, isn't it profitable to all of them?
No, but what, like the bank is like an individual. Not everybody does the same type of real estate. I do industrial, you do apartments, you do commercial, the same thing. They concentrate in one area, they get to know that area very well, and they
Got
feel
it.
comfortable.
Mhm.
They feel like if they jump and they do other areas, it's not their expertise.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but between all the banks, you're going to find one that fits whatever you try to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are banks that strictly do industrial buildings,
Mhm.
nothing else.
Mhm.
Then there are banks that they do apartments.
Mhm.
They're experts for apartments. They love apartments.
Mhm.
And then there are others that they do restaurant buildings
Mhm.
because that's their expertise. So
Yeah, so they choose a specialty and then they do their specialty well so that they're able to just to have better relationships because they do that type of building so well.
correct,
Okay.
correct,
Mhm,
correct.
mhm. Nice. When you kind of mentioned that some banks want to avoid restaurants, was that on account of the pandemic and then the banks were not too comfortable with restaurants, or is it just that they don't work with restaurants?
They don't want restaurants
Mhm.
because they felt like restaurants usually are one tenant property.
Mhm.
And if that restaurant fails,
Mhm.
the deal fails.
Mhm.
So
And-
kind of, they're uncomfortable. A lot of banks are uncomfortable with the restaurant type of properties or buildings.
Mhm. Got it.
But then there are a lot of banks that they love restaurants
Mhm.
because they feel there is a cash flow. And so they want to do the restaurant because they expect the restaurateur to deposit all the money from his business
Mhm.
at their bank. So then there are different incentives, different, thinking.
Mhm. So do you have a property all over the US or are you concentrated over here? Where is the best region for the deals that you like?
Presently, all my properties are in the state of Illinois.
Mhm.
Okay, I find it convenient just to be where I am.
Mhm.
It takes a little bit different, thinking to go outside.
Mhm.
I bought a property in Wichita, a strip center. I had it there for 5 years, and it was not big enough to be able to have a full-time manager on the premise.
Mhm.
Okay, so I tried to manage it from here, and every time there was an issue, I had to fly out there and come back.
Mhm.
So I find it not very rewarding,
Mhm.
and I sold it.
Mhm.
But you can buy anywhere.
Mhm.
What I would say is, if you think to buy outside of the state where you live, make sure it's a big deal. It's a big property where it justifies and it has the capacity to have a full-time person
Mhm.
to manage. Because if you buy like five apartments in Kansas, I mean, there is not enough to have a manager there. So you have to
Right.
manage it yourself from far.
Mhm.
And managing from far is not very practical and convenient, I would say,
Mhm.
unless it's a triple net property that, you have no obligations and the tenant does
Right.
everything. Yes.
So for your properties, do you manage all of them yourself, or do you hire a management company for some of
No,
them?
I manage all the properties myself.
Mhm. Mhm. Is it um, do you feel that how in what ways is it better for you to manage rather than to hire a management company? Because I see so many like buildings with management companies, and uh, it's that's a good insight because you have so many properties and then you rather manage them yourself.
Again, it's a very, very good point. I feel like, do you have someone who is spending the money, your pocket money, or you want to have it your own? Nothing wrong to having a manager and do that for you. Okay, if you've got something else that you can do, okay, probably it's an individual choice. Okay, for me, okay, I'm the properties I manage myself. The few times I attempted to have a manager at the property, it didn't work.
Mhm.
Therefore, I, walk away from that. But again, it's an individual choice, nothing specific about it.
Yeah, and then of course you have all your contractors, like you have your electrical people and your plumbing people, and then they could help you in all your properties as well.
Well, I have three people that they are very handy,
Mhm.
and so they go from building to building,
Mhm.
and they do certain little part of the work. If it's a bigger job, then we hire a third party, big company outside.
Mhm.
But for the little things, we just manage it ourselves, which it's effective. It's a cost savings,
Mhm.
okay, and it's timing.
Mhm.
So if you get let's say someone today, it's a cold day, and up until today we had a hot weather here in Chicago,
Mhm.
so the heating wasn't on, right?
Mhm.
But all suddenly today, the heat went on, and let's say one of the units didn't start.
Mhm.
One of our people go there, and sometimes it's a reset, simple things,
Mhm.
okay, where so it's a fuse, and we do those things, and boom, we put the service back.
Mhm.
If not, then we call a company, a third party company. They come and do the service.
Mhm.
Still, it's a more cost efficient the way that I do it versus, if I had a manager.
Mhm. So you invest in real estate. Do you also invest in businesses?
Not at this point. I feel like I'm not, 30 or 40 years old. Okay. I Business usually requires uh, time and energy. I tend to go towards real estate
Mhm.
because real estate is more passive. Okay,
Mhm.
it's once we find the deal, we close the deal, then there is kind of a put it on the quiet side.
Mhm.
Business requires
Mhm.
uh, activity,
Mhm.
and so yeah, based on my age now, I kind of I avoid the business.
Mhm. So when you sold that building, that $3 million building for 4.5, so at the time you sold it, did you have any tenants on the fourth and fifth floor?
Yes, no, no, I didn't even have time to do anything with those.
Oh,
Still,
no.
I just sold it with
Mhm.
whatever it was to build it.
Oh, so it was a very good. So you got a lot because you really didn't even spend anything to remodel the fourth and fifth floor yet.
Correct, correct. So another thing is you make the money, which is many other people say that in real estate you make the money when you buy the property, not when you sell it.
Mm.
And what it means is you need to buy right. Okay. So people think, okay, I'll buy it for $10, then I'll sell it for 20 and I'll make the profit. But usually pay attention when you buy the property, you need to buy it good,
Mhm.
that's when you make the money.
Mhm.
Okay. I knew when I bought that property for 3 million, it was so cheap
Mhm.
that that's where I made my money.
Mhm.
Okay. So again, it's important to do your due diligence and find the right circumstances by the property.
So at that time, what would you say that the building was worth when you paid 3 million for it?
It's worth at least 5,
Mm.
and no doubt about it.
Oh.
But simply the owners, since they inherited the property, they didn't know the actual value, or they didn't care, or they were comfortable enough where, it just, but based on my experience, when I look at the property and I look, it was downtown, 5-story building, the value was there. I had zero doubts about it.
Mhm. Yeah, and five stories. That's not too tall of a building in downtown. It has a lot of potential. The real estate is worth a lot.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct. So again, you look at the deal, look at the numbers, okay? And you're not gonna find too many like that,
Mhm.
but there are plenty to be busy, okay?
Mhm.
Not every building downtown Chicago is selling for that,
Mhm.
and not everyone had that building for 3 generations.
Mhm.
You understand that?
Yes.
So probably now this property, it's in the 10 million and plus.
Mhm.
If someone is, trying to trade or, sell that or buy that building.
Mhm. Well, next time let's talk about a building that is not that good of a deal, but you still bought.
Correct. Correct.
That's
The next time,
mhm.
yes, we'll talk about the property that was not as good as I thought, and
Mhm.
see what's the effect there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ted Mavrakis, for joining us today and teaching us so much about real estate investment strategy.
My pleasure, Trudy, all the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
And
Ready to share that?